January and February, my nickname for those is the not so calm before the storm. We've got a lot of Mars retrograde in Cancer. Mars has also fallen in Cancer. Like, the trap there is be super angry and whine and don't do anything about it, or wait until the moment where expressing your anger is minimally effective and then freak out, rather than like applying force in a thoughtful way, in a way that would change something. So a lot of being tempted into sort of martial expressions or displays that don't actually solve the problem or defeat the enemy. So there's a lot of that. And then we get to the clown show. When we approach Neptune's ingress into Aries on March 30th, for the month leading up to that and the month following that, so pretty much all of March and April, we have a fucking circus happening, and it's all centered on that Pisces-Aries border where Neptune is making that most portentous ingress. It's just back and forth across the Aries and Pisces border. We have more or less simultaneous Mercury and Venus retrogrades, which start in Aries and then go back to Pisces and then go back to Aries, crossing over Neptune 3 times while it's making that transition, like super underlining that Venus retrograde, which begins in Aries and then goes direct in Pisces, also occurred during March, April of 2017, 2009, 2001, just every 8 years. Just think about what March, April 2017 and 2009 were like, and see if you can see what the shape of that was, right? And what the like adjustment you had to make was, because it's not that thing exactly happening again. It's the kind of decisions and shifts you had to make, and and that life areas where those were occurring that will recur, but it's not the same thing again. And then we also have Saturn is in the mix there, just about to ingress into Aries, to follow Neptune into Aries. And during that, especially the March portion, we also have a pair of eclipses, one of which is in Aries, and it's the last eclipse in Aries in this cycle. And then the other one is in Virgo, which begins, which is on the Virgo Pisces axis, which will be where we'll be having eclipses for the next while. So it's all of this. It's just all in that Aries Pisces space that more changes will be occurring in. Saturn itself ingresses into Aries on May 26th. And so we will be having not only Neptune in Aries, but Neptune and Saturn pretty tightly conjoined. They get within 1/4 of a degree, but don't quite conjoin in 2025 in Aries. And we have that from May 26th until September 1st, when Saturn comes back into Pisces. Neptune always brings a dreaming, right? Neptune brings an enclosing set of narratives, a framing of experience, and usually a set of ideals that we aspire to whenever it changes signs. Like, what is the Neptune Pisces dream like? And we have to understand the dream that's been having us in order to understand the next dream we're going to have. For the Neptune and Pisces dream, we're looking at 2011 was the first ingress, went in for good in 2012, and then it's been ever since then. There's almost always a seeking of an ideal, right? And with Neptune and Pisces, like the ideal has to do with having an oceanic or a vast, encompassing, deep and compassionate understanding, right? And so you see, again, if we start 2011, 2012, lots of people decided that magic wasn't fake. Lots of people decided that astrology was quite intriguing and not just a Rorschach test for narcissistic boomers. People's stories about the world have expanded considerably. We've got an ocean of stories. Many of them nonsensical, but it's nonetheless full of life, this ocean. People have attempted to be much more understanding of people in different categories than them. The Neptune and Pisces before this which was the 1850s, was when abolitionism got big. It's also when spiritualism got big. I've been trying to think about the contrast and like the contrast of ideals. And so I think with Neptune and Pisces, the ideal figure is saintly, right? There's something very moral about Pisces, whereas historically, and I think you can already smell it from here psychically, Neptune in Aries, the aspiration is the heroic figure, right? Where the most important thing is not to be understanding. The most important thing is to have acted in an honorable or virtuous way, to have done the right thing. We're going from a Jupiter-ruled ideal to a martial ideal. In some ways, like, that's a nice corrective, right? Like the getting waterlogged, we could use a little fire, but just to underscore sort of the stupid side of that, which we will inevitably also save. The last time that Neptune went into Aries was 1861, and this was in the case of the United States, it was within 24 hours of the beginning of the Civil War, and which the Neptune in Aries was not the one thing that predicts the Civil War, right? Like, don't think about it that way. But what we saw was a massive enlistment on both sides, because it was widely held that this was going to be a grand and honorable adventure in which young men might prove their mettle and do right by their country. So Aries is primarily martial, but secondarily, it is the place where the sun is in its exaltation, right? It's not the sign that the sun rules, but it's the place where the sun is most glorious. And so with Neptune and Aries, you get leader fantasies, yes, along with warrior fantasies. And that's the problem with Neptune, is there's always some good inspiration to Neptune, right? Like, a lot of people's worldviews expanded meaningfully and usefully during Neptune and Pisces. Again, maybe went past that point of utility. But there's always like some real good that happens with Neptune, and then it just doesn't stop, right? And so there's like going to be some good, like, heroic inspiration. Be like, oh, you know what? I can do this. Not only is it possible to struggle through X adversity, it's actually meaningful and beautiful, right? And it's like, oh, that's like, that makes me stronger. That, that it's useful in all these ways. It's just trying to find the point where Neptune just keeps expanding, because it doesn't have a natural limit. No other planet proper contains Neptune. The only thing that kind of contains Neptune is Pluto.
It's in polar opposition to Neptune. Neptune is the archetype of primordial oneness. It is the abyssal ocean. It is the womb. It is the undifferentiated state prior to birth.
So there's Neptune, and then, I don't know, 55 days after Neptune enters Aries, Saturn joins Neptune, right? They're there for 2.5 months. They come back to Pisces together very closely. So Saturn Neptune, which is something that has not occurred perfectly yet, but we've been at the point in time where they're very close, sharing the same sign and getting closer and closer every year for the last 2 years. During the last Saturn Neptune conjunction in 89, 90, 91 was the collapse of the Soviet Union. I think that inevitably there's big confusion and incident, like it's international incident territory, but also lots of confusion about it. It's really confusing.